This podcast is also available via stagelink.com, the groundbreaking new platform for live performing arts. Please support the podcast by liking, subscribing, commenting, and tagging the podcast. It helps us to continue to bring the industry high level content. I'm your host, Shenea Stiletto, and my guest on today's Circuspreneur podcast, honoring Mental Health Awareness Month, is world champion artistic roller skater, founder of Stilt, and stage 4 cancer survivor, Trey Knight. Thank you for coming on to the podcast, Trey. I adore you. And how are you?
Well, it's wonderful to see you again. I adore you as well, and I'm getting through it. It's been 6 years. We are transitioning right now with potential new opinions and going a bit more aggressive with some of the treatments that I'm on. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm doing okay. I'm still around, so I'm very grateful of that. So.
Well,
Mhm.
I've been watching your journey from afar, Trey. You're really open about your cancer journey and all of the things that you are surviving. And I want to tell listeners a little bit more about your background because you're such an exceptional person going through an extraordinary experience. Trey Knight is also a 6 time national champion artistic roller skater who has worked with mega celebrities such as Gwen Stefani, Katy Perry, and Usher. And after approximately a year and a half of severe pain and several misdiagnoses, he was finally diagnosed in October 2019, where he found himself already in stage 4 cancer, which included the primary tumor, involvement of 3 lymph nodes, and a small tumor in his right lung. Trey started harsh chemotherapy the Friday following the 7 show run of Debbie Allen's annual Christmas show, Hot Chocolate Nutcracker, just a few months before the COVID shutdown in March 2020, which led to the cancellation of sporting events and entertainment gigs. So, when we were all obviously in this type of crisis of where is the industry going to go, we're in the circus arts, we're in the entertainment industry, everyone's, so afraid about where their career is going. You, in addition to that, are fighting for your life because now you discover that you have cancer. And so,
Mhm.
in the midst of that, Trey, what was that like in, seeing the industry shut down, in seeing all of these difficult, experiences that, all of your fellow entertainer friends are having, but in the midst of this, you also too have this, crazy diagnosis, which the culmination up to that was you, kind of searching to see what was wrong with you. And so how did that feel? In the midst of that, I can't imagine. I remember that time in feeling so overwhelmed myself. And I can't imagine adding a cancer diagnosis on top of that.
It was a lot to take on at once. I mean, for sure. So it was a year and a half of extreme pain, multiple doctors, different therapies. We don't have to go too far into it, but misdiagnosis. Wanted to handle a labrum tear from years ago on a tour that I was on, and then the next one thought that it was possibly my hip bones were too big for my sockets, which also didn't register at all. Um, so finally, at a world competition with one of my skaters, Allison Kiger, we were there, and unfortunately, I started bleeding, and maybe fortunately, but as soon as I got home, my doctor said go to immediately to urgent care, and then I was diagnosed with stage 4. So to get right to your question, I made it through the shows, through so much pain, the rollers, whatever I could do to get through the shows. Uh, Went right into intensive care, not intensive care, chemotherapy the Friday following. And then, so that was a lot already. And then when
Hmm.
at the beginning of the year, I was still working, I did an episode of Lucifer in a skate scene, which was a lot of fun, although I was very sick on chemo. And only I kept it quiet at this point. And then I also had a booking as a body double on ice skates for the Goldbergs, which was also a lot of fun. But I did let crew know and stunt coordinator know that because my neuropathy was so bad, and we were obviously out on ice for hours. So I had my heat pads, heat pockets, and all my gear. So anyway, and then the final thing, this is when we were negotiating. I was going to be away in Palace of Fine Arts for a month with one of my stunt partners, lovely skater, and we had the contract laid out, and then shutdowns. So the contract,
Wow.
we fortunately got half of the pay on the contract, but as you know, it was a sharp, quick shutdown, and all of the sporting events, no more competitions, rinks are closed, and all of our entertainment jobs the same, shut down. Uh, I did feel like, as alone as I was so grateful that my mother could come out at each big marker, like each big new surgery or new, situation I had to go through. She would be there for a while, a couple weeks usually, to make sure so that I can't even talk right now. I am on chemo. That she would help me get through those certain points, right, in time.
Hmm.
But now the other thing I did want to add about this, because there was no work, the industry was shut down. COVID was, as you know, in LA, the hospitals were full. It actually let me ease up on the idea that I had to work, because my plan was I was going to try to book as many jobs in between my treatments that were
Of
every
course.
right, because the show
That's
must
what
go
we do.
on.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I was trying to plan my days off on the Palace of Fine Arts job so that I could come home, get my infusion, and then I would have the day off to recover, and then I would go back into shows. But that was when I was still at real high capacity performing. I mean, this is 6 years later, 5 years later now. I'm down to 135 this week, 135 pounds. I was 174,
Mhm.
and 8 surgeries now. And 30, I just started my 2 days ago, 37th cycle of chemotherapy. And I've had 34, I think, uh, radiation treatment. So it was 28 consecutive in my lower back on the main tumor. And then I had a major craniotomy, where they removed a 3.4, 3.6 size tumor that was pushing my midline over. Um, they did 5 days of radiation after that craniotomy. And then I just recently had an 8 millimeter tumor show up in actually underneath where the original one was, that they just zapped. It's called stereotactic radiosurgery, for a small 8 millimeter tumor. And with my cancer, it is uh, 1 to 3% that ever reaches the brain. So that's already a mystery there. And then I've beaten 2 tumors so far, which the numbers, if it reaches the brain, are just a few months. So one thing I advocate is try to be as informed as possible, but do
Mhm.
not get stuck on the dark numbers and percentages of death rates, because every cancer is different. Everyone's body is different, and we all handle the treatments different. So you gotta, you don't have to do anything. I don't want to say you gotta, but just try to be realistic. And my thing is optimistic through this whole journey, as dark and heavy and alone.
I'm so sorry,
I'm
Trey.
so grateful, but I'm still here.
We all are. I'm so grateful for you, and I'm so grateful that you're still here too. And you're such a fighter, Trey, and you're so phenomenal. And we discussed like how open you've been publicly about your journey and how hard that would be as an artist at your level to do that, because there's so much fear in this industry around being perceived as sick and not capable of doing the job, or being injured, and that people will see you as damaged goods and they won't work with your schedule. Like, you'll have to figure that out. And you were already doing that because you're phenomenal and you're a world champion and you've been coordinating high level entertainment for decades. And again, that's how we met. And so just watching you being able to navigate this space as the warrior that you are, I think has been so important for industry friends and colleagues to see what this looks like from the inside out. Because the fact that you might have to be quiet and you can't reach out to get the support you need, to me is just really sad and heartbreaking. And I think that's something that needs to change. And I feel like you have changed the perception of that a lot through your journey, while also to taking care of yourself. You know, you talked about the fact that you've always carried your own personal insurance because you are an independent contractor, an independent performer, and where there are wonderful things for that. I've always done the same thing. Even if I've gotten an insurance through an employer, I've never released my own personal insurance. And you know, even like specialty insurances. So
And it
can you
is,
just, yeah, right, how important that is too. So we find ourselves sometimes with like four different or five different policies that we have to maintain. And I imagine that that made a huge difference in your journey, even though your friends and your colleagues still had to set up a GoFundMe for you because of the astronomical cost of all of your treatments. And so you're not just dealing with the stress of losing work, because our bodies are everything for what we do. And now that's like the one thing that you need to be working. That is not, you know, something that you can push like you're used to pushing. We're used to forcing ourselves beyond limits daily. That's just like what we do. But then now your body has been working against itself. But I think that it's been such a fine-tuned instrument for so many years as the champion that you are, that it's set you up to be this extraordinary expression of who you are today through this journey. So could you reflect a bit, Trey, on kind of the entire cultural and societal, you know, perspective that we have in this entertainment industry, and why that can also too lead to folks maybe not getting the care they need, not getting the support that they need, and how it needs to lead to more support for artists, to make it through their journey so that they're not alone. I know the community shows up, the community has showed up for you, but we also need to do, I think, a lot more, for our fellow artists that give so much, that bring so much joy and beauty to the public. I mean, all the favorite things that people are seeing have come from people like you, artists like you, and from you, literally just yourself. You've been the think tank behind those things that people get so inspired by. So you could please share.
yeah. When when COVID shut us down and I was remaining also very quiet, I knew industry was shut. But exactly that. I didn't want to be perceived as, oh, he's stage four, he's not bookable anymore. Like he can't, which
Hmm.
I was still functioning until the major surgery or certain things where of course you have to take different breaks. But of course, that was already no work because we were all shut down, right? And then on top of that, you've got insurance that's quite expensive. I've got good insurance, but it's expensive. Then you have your copays, then you have your deductible, and those just keep adding up and adding up. Plus, where we live, not just where we live, our country's very expensive. And,
Hmm.
so it's not sustainable. It's just not sustainable. I don't come from trust funds. I don't have a background of loads of money. Uh, but I've been very successful in my career. And so we need more help. And I'm getting to the point now. I mean, I am so grateful that I've raised money through GoFund. I mean, but it's getting to the point now. I may have to go to Medi-Cal. I have to go to other ways because it's not sustainable.
Hmm.
The pill that we're looking at, excuse me, $24,000 for 120 pills. So if it's not covered, what do you do?
Hmm.
Excuse me, I didn't want to. So we're looking at that, but sorry. There's a lot of transition happening right now too because the arena Tiken, they've had me on 12 cycles. They put me on a chemo maintenance because it worked well, and then I started having pancreatic attacks, uh, worse pain, worse than even the main tumor, multiple emergency room visits. I also have Lars, which is lower anterior resection syndrome, because they removed the whole last part of my bowel tract. So it's been 4 years that I have to do a 2-hour medical irrigation of my colon before I can leave the house to do anything.
Wow.
That's just with Lars itself from the first major surgery. And so that, of course, adds complications with irinotecan and Fluorosil because it. The joke is it's irinotecan instead of irinotecan because it. Right now, I'm still jacked up. I've got the chemo pumping. They put me on steroids they give me two steroids before, which is supposed to counteract the immune system so that the chemo can work better. It won't fight the chemo. So the first couple of days, I'm wired, I'm jacked up. And then usually tonight is when the crash and all the bowel system gets all whacked out. And then the complication with Lars makes it more challenging. So anyway, they have I have a fairly large pseudocyst, which is not cancer that has developed from the pancreatitis, which is on the tail of the pancreas, which is also creating a lot of the pain issues when this side is going through the chemo. So,
Mm.
so I was in and out of the hospital, not the hospital, emergency room, 5 times, and then they kept me finally, and they put a drain in my back to drain out the collected fluid from the abscess around it, but not the pseudocyst. So we're still dealing with that complication, which would require a drain through my stomach to then drain the pseudocyst. If it gets too bad, you could do surgery, but we don't. We want to prevent as much as possible that having surgery because there was a 3 point something centimeter tumor in my pancreas. Thank goodness that is not there right now. Thank goodness.
Thank
Um,
God.
yes, absolutely.
Man.
The one in the liver is still remaining at about 9 millimeters. So the irinotecan. Oh, and then the other not fun news that let me back up a little bit. When I was having all the episodes in the emergency room and the drain, they took me off the uh, chemo because you can't do. I don't do blood. Oh my gosh, chemo brain. I don't coagulate blood very well anymore because this other medicine that they add to the chemo. It helps to prevent tumor growth, but also you can't have surgeries or things like that with this particular medicine because you may bleed too much. So anyway, that's why I waited 9 months for the major hernia that the irinotecan gave me. They
Mm.
that surgery, and then I went through the drain. And during these 4 months being off chemo is when it came back. So it was
Really,
what's that?
really is when it came back.
Yeah, but it showed up in 3 spots in my neck, which is not
Mm.
good. So now I'm waiting on another opinion. I'm meeting with another oncologist, and what we're trying to do, they use stereotactic radiosurgery, which is radiation, very specific targeted, as well as chemotherapy treatments. And then they can also mix in cryoablation or I forget the name of it, where they heat it up, um, extreme heat. And then there's other ways that they can treat the tumors that aren't being so affected by the irinotecan anymore. So we're looking at because once you go through a medicine, it either knows how to get work around it or it doesn't work as well. And once you get to the end of that line of treatment, you have to move to another or a combination, and you're just kind of because it's a beast. Um, so currently I'm waiting. Next week I go to see this new oncologist. We're setting up appointments I have on the 22nd with my brain neurospecialist that we can possibly talk to them about their radiostatic surgery in the neck because that needs to be something else to be discussed. Amazingly, I found I have a friend that's on the East Coast, and we were chatting, and she said, "Have you ever checked out Sloan or Kaiser over here?" And they don't have Kaiser there. I am with Kaiser, which they've been amazing. So they've been fantastic. Um,
Okay.
but and their numbers of deniability are the lowest percentage out of all the insurance companies. I looked
Really?
that up, and I was like, that was
I wouldn't
recently.
have thought that.
I wouldn't either, but I've never had a problem
Hmm.
getting through the system because they're all connected within the Kaiser network. So the
Mm.
referral system and the record system seems much more efficient and easier, especially at what I have to go through with so many appointments and so many doctors and specialists and primary and palliative and their mental. It's all in there. But so what was kind of amazing is that Sloan is having their already on state clinical trial, but they're already at phase 3. So they have already tested the toxicity, the levels. So they're opening it out. And it's for my type of cancer that is KRAS positive, which is it mutated to basically the light is always on. Like normal cells, they'll kind of they have kind of an on off switch. But once cancer cells move to a mutation to KRAS, then they're more aggressive. They just want to stay active, creating more tumors and problems. So this is focusing on metastatic stage 4 cancer patients with colorectal or lung cancer that they're now integrating stereotactic, these other modalities as the trial. So we're discussing that as well. I may be bridging over to them, or I already looked, they are doing this study as an extension at Cedars in LA. So I may get into their program, which would be local and home again. I'm in Palm Springs now. But so this is a lot of stuff stirring up right now that, the medicine is getting better. I also believe and trust in homeopathic, but it's a combination. I would already be
Hmm.
gone and deceased if I didn't trust Western medicine.
Hmm.
But I do want to share one more thing on this note is when I was first diagnosed, I went really kind of hardcore on Gerson therapy, which is GERSON. It's the idea that you're doing a pretty regimented juicing cycle. Like it's,
Okay, I know the juicing.
yeah, so which
Hmm.
was great. And it's just getting the straight nutrients, all that kind of thing. And it's
Yes.
amazing Hippocrates soup and things like that. But after 4 years and my weight has just continued to drop, I'm 135 in this last, bit here from 174 when I was not diagnosed yet. Uh, I started adding in more meats and proteins. And because I've been also kind of scared of foods because we don't know exactly, I certainly know myself, I'm not sure yourself, but I grew up in the 70s, which inundated with all the processed foods and the new, like fast, all that stuff. So I don't know if that started this cancer journey in my body or we have no idea, environmental.
Hmm.
So anyway, there's been an
Hmm.
interesting process with that, integrating more meats, chicken, sometimes a steak, which I love. I love meat. But anyway, so it's a journey with foods too, uh,
Hmm.
a period with an ileostomy bag that I had to measure how much was coming out. I had a temporary ileostomy. Um, and you can't eat seeds or skins because they can get stuck in your stoma. And, just all these really, anyway, I'll go off on that part. But I guess the main question, getting back to it, is that there is not enough resources. And
Hmm.
it's $829 a month right now for insurance. Plus it's a $8,000 to $10,000 deductible. And then if I go get these advanced scans, it's like 270 or 170. An example, I went in, I have, like I said, I don't blood clot very easily. So I had a slice on my finger. I was making a salad. Very simple. Over 4 hours at home, it was just still bleeding out with a tourniquet, covering it, like holding it up, whatever. So I ran to urgent care, emergency over here, because I know this is a problem with the medicine I'm on. So they treated it, cleaned it, put something on it, like an ointment or something, sent me out over $4,000.
No.
Yes, ma'am.
No.
The bill was over 4K. I still had to pay 330. Now,
Oh,
I did not have to pay all that, but $330 just for this that they billed for over 4,000. And
insane.
right. And this last emergency room, because to be honest, I have a stack of those that I haven't looked at because they are so astronomical and they're beyond, like they're not, they waive off a lot of it, right? But they charge so
Hmm.
much, right? And so I pay attention to the deductibles, the copays, and then that. So I have a stack of those, and I have no idea with the craniotomy and these surgeries what that's all cost. But for example, just the emergency room right after the brain radiation recently was 21K for about 4 to 5 hours with another CT scan. They managed my pain and then they released me. And I'm still waiting on the bill right now. It looks like they're only going to cover 17,000 out of the 21,000, and that's just this last visit. So it just continues to. Anyway, so yes, the art,
Yeah.
our public, we need help with the people that really need these treatments to stay alive. You know, so
And our American system, I mean, we've traveled, so many of us in the performing arts have traveled all over the world where there are people that live in countries where you don't have these same medical burdens, where medical treatments are free, or they're so low cost that it's not something that would bankrupt you or that would completely upend your financial life. And so it is a possibility. And it makes me so angry, which I think it should make everyone angry, that you are trying to, again, preserve your mental health, to take care of yourself, to deal with the fact that you can't move and shake and make money in the way that you used to and enjoy your art form in the way that you express yourself, because you have to think about how do I pay for healthcare, which for me, it's a human right. Healthcare should be something that is free and is accessible. And I think that it's a really tragedy of our system, especially because I've lived in so many different systems around the world. I've seen it operate just fine, where you should be in just this very protected, safe, loving space where money is like the last thing
insurance
on your mind.
they should not have a say in our treatments with the doctor.
Mm,
They should be completely
hmm
out of it and stop making so much money and then
hmm
denying people
hmm
what they need. They shouldn't even be in the question or in the equation between the doctor and the patient. You
hmm
know, our government and insurance companies shouldn't make those decisions when these are life and death critical choices, that should be discussed with the right specialist, not someone moving money, you know. So
Yes.
that's frustrating because, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, please continue, Trey, what you were going to
Well,
say.
I was just going to say that when you see the outrageous bills, you're
Hmm
like, all that money's going somewhere, obviously.
Right.
And the doctors need to be paid. They definitely need to be paid. Well, the supplies need to be paid, but pharma, come on, we need to, like I said a second ago, the one that we're looking at, 24K. So I got to see if that's going to fall under the drug approval on my medicine list. Hopefully, I'm
hmm
sure it will, but hopefully we don't know yet. So it's a challenge by challenge, for sure. Yeah. So
So,
I think
and how, Trey, how are you supporting your mental health? How are you supporting the fact that you're not able to perform in the way that you've been performing for so many years, and having that outlet for, your creative expression? Someone who has a very creative brain, which to me, it just also speaks to how you like look at your care and how you're taken care of and the questions and things that you ask. And again, it's a testament, I think, to, like you said, why you're still here and why you're doing so incredibly well under such terrible and challenging circumstances. I know my words don't even really encapsulate what the experience has been like for you, but as an artist and as someone that, again, makes their living and expresses themselves in such beautiful ways, I am sure that that's showing up in so many different facets of your care. I can only imagine what the doctors are experiencing with a person like you, or someone that they're caring for like you. It must be really different for them. Speaking to someone that knows so much and has such like a very well-rounded perspective. But how are you, I would say, coping and managing those other facets of yourself that I don't think they're dormant. I think you're probably expressing them a lot of different ways, because, again, our lives just evolve and we never know kind of where it's going to lead us. But how are you able to find those spaces of peace and comfort and joy and that high, even that many times we get from being on the stage when you know what that feels like, you know what it's like to be fed from an audience or be fed from a project. And so, how is your life feeding you in other ways while not having full access to that? And then, do you imagine yourself in the future having access to to that again? And if not, what does that feel like in terms of how your journey will look in the future, whether you're able to be a full-time teacher again in that way and give in, you know, different capacities of all of your talents that you have because you possess so many.
Yeah, I mean that's another big question, but it's also important. That has been mostly very hard because, as you
Mhm.
know, as artists and creatives, connection and connectivity and uh, just that collaboration is so inspiring, and it's one of our passions is what we do. Um, so that's been, of course, very challenging. I did actually shoot the pink video on stilts with an ileostomy bag in
Wow.
between treatments because this is it when they started to barely release COVID restrictions and people were still kind of quarantined and we had to be tested to go on set. You had your pockets, right?
Hmm.
And so it was a great booking, and I was like, "What's wardrobe?" Let me add another note in here because I was supposed to have the ileostomy reversed after 3 months, but COVID had the surgery and the ward was full of COVID. So I was delayed because they didn't think that my ileostomy reversal was uh, crucial. It was now becoming an elective because it wasn't a cancer tumor. So they handled the main tumor, the lung resection, which I was in a curtained off area because there were no rooms available. So I stayed in the post op for that one. And then they waited, there was a delay. So I had the ileostomy for 6 months instead of three. So I was already in the window of 3 to 6 months when it was supposed to be gone, and I wasn't on any of the other treatments. So I was like, what's the wardrobe concept for this? Right. And they said, oh, you guys are going to be in suits. I was like, perfect. Cause they won't be able to see my elastic bag. Cause usually circus or specialty artists, you see a lot, you know,
Yeah.
tastefully, but you show the body, the human facility. So I was like, great. So I sure did. I showed up. Nobody knew. And,
You're
you know,
fabulous.
up there on my stilts, having to do a high kick pink through the universe. And so it was a lot of fun. But but by hour after hour, and I'm up at stilts, and it was a
Hmm.
3 hour makeup, where they add prosthetics, they do the whole thing. So as we're shooting, what happens is the ileostomy bag continues to fill up a little bit, right? And I'm up on
Hmm.
still. We can't stop production to be like, I have to get down and like empty my bag. So I just was like, okay, guys, we need to. I kept like, you know, discreetly, but it was a fun challenge for sure. And then I
Oh my
told my
God.
woman that she was an amazing makeup artist when she started taking all this stuff off, and I just had the regular shirt. And I said, look what I have right here. And I was like, she's like, you've been here all these hours, but but it was that passion that, I was like, okay, I could do this right now. But
Yeah.
so that certainly didn't last that long with the other complications, but I was still coaching quite a bit. Now that leads
Hmm.
to other complications that we probably don't want to get into on here, but uh, I was actually a year ago at the rink that I was teaching at, I was confronted with a demand from an ex athlete, and then her father threatened me to back off of her. This is why I have two 10-year-old little boys about to warm up for their mini world skate event, right? Two kids. And as soon as I told the father, I got upset with him and I said, stay away from me. I'm not working with you guys anymore. You guys, basically, they were working with another coach for months without me knowing. And I was co sponsoring her as an athlete who
Mm.
was my national champion previous. And these two little kids and his brother and sister were national champs in the younger division. Anyway, it was crazy. So as soon as I told the father to stay away from me, stay out of my life, and I removed myself, he went and grabbed another female's wrist and flipped her around aggressively, assaulted her, and then the daughter ran and pushed the shoulder off the dad as if she was going after the father. Now, it's on security footage. Safe sport. You're very clear with safe sport because of,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
an athlete in sport. So I have to go through that. And they are trying to get me not safe sport, but the people that set this up are trying to get me banned for life out of the
Oh
sport that
my
I was a real
God.
champion in.
Oh
So
my God.
it went right to safe sport. 2 weeks later, because I have the security footage, I have details of every step, and you could see play by play how they came in and did this. They cleared me within 2 weeks, but now
Mm,
our organization still has me under investigation. Kind
mm.
of playing both sides, it appears. But anyway, it's been over a year that I've not been able to coach because of this. Now, I'm not suspended,
Wow.
but because the facilities are so limited, there's nowhere for me to teach out of, right? Because you need huge space for this type of training. Anyway, so it's very complicated. That being knowing that so many colleagues already knew this was about to take place, and not one of them could open the mouth. The parents, the coaches that were involved, the officials that saw it happen, is so disheartening. That's the part
Mm.
that just breaks here. And they all know that I've been on a cancer journey at that point for 5 years. And I had
I
just
mean,
came out of my hernia operation surgery and back on chemo. So that was shocking. And you don't think that people have that kind of capacity either. So now, for the most part, I've had amazing support, as you know, through
mm,
online and telling my story. But this is also devastating. I had 15 new athletes that I was building up. So, anyways, it's super frustrating. I still have a couple of outlet that I work with out here in an outdoor facility. And I've got another girl that almost every year, the last few years, she's qualified for the world competition. So I still work with her out of Chicago. We do it great. It's on, online, the live feeds. So I'm trying to do a little bit of workaround for the inspiration, and
mhm.
but that's the hard part because that's our connectivity, and that's how we flourish. Now, real quick to jump, before my diagnosis, we have longevity in this career as a performer, but that branches out to directing or choreographing or designing or
Yes.
that stuff, which is we love too, and that's part of the last 20 years of my journey as well.
Yes.
And so Stilt World that I started, that wasn't
Yes.
the end goal. The goal was actually to present the concept and then get it back to get the young fresh talent, train this new technique that I developed over the years, and create the show. I don't want to say the name right now, but it's
Okay.
been it's in kind of a presentation form, and then there's an addition to that. The background, I was a lucid dreamer for many years. All right, so from 91 or 93, I think, until 2000, I was doing a lot of writing and recording my lucid dreams and doing
Mhm.
different kind of research about archetypes and history of stuff. So, and it was very fascinating. That's what I'm basing the concept of the show for Stilt World, is based on this journey of one man through the mythic archetypes of Dreamtime, and the manifestation of vision into this dimension, like the bridgeway, and using the
Mm,
stilts and the characters as the bridgeway from body to flesh, and being able to integrate holograms as we communicate. So this was like the larger vision that I was meeting actually with CAA and got great feedback, but I wasn't quite there yet. And with the book information as well. So those are the bigger, uh, long projects that I had been in development until this struck. And so all that's just been also just like, okay, we got to sit it there because, as you know, that's a lot of work, a lot of funding, a lot of minds coming together,
yeah.
hugely complex because we were looking at Vegas or Singapore for that kind of thing.
Mm,
I would love Singapore, but again, I don't know right now. Right now, it's minute to minute, doctor to doctor. I'm in
mhm,
survival. Like it's daily survival. So
mm,
up all night, chemo, anyway, nausea, pain, juggling the medicines. But that's like still like my bigger picture inspiration is to, and now I'm looking at doing a special book on Lars. How do you handle Lars? Lower
Hmm.
anterior C-section syndrome, which was for my first main surgery. Um,
Okay.
and that's where they remove basically your whole rectum, right? So I basically have the colon to the exit. Thank goodness, as a younger person that was diagnosed, I have the muscle control. And if not, I would go to a permanent colostomy bag for that. But
Mm.
um, why was I going to tell you that part? Because shockingly, many of my doctors had never heard of Lars, right? So it was like I would have to explain to them, well, lower anterior resection syndrome and all the side effects and problems that come with that. Um, so I want to do like my own book, and I have a friend in New York. She's well studied on the human body and cadavers and knows the whole system. That we may do like a collaborative write up on how to help treat Lars because you know it's been an interesting journey with that too, that there's not a lot of information. I'm in a private group now that they let me in when I had the reversal surgery. So once I had to deal with Lars, they let me into this group, and I understand because it's very private, it's personal. People go for years and can't go to work because it's called clustering. You don't complete going to the bathroom. It's the colon just knows how to push things forward. So
Mm.
there's ways that you can do an irrigation and you clear out most of your colon through basically an enema, irrigating it out. And then I have freedom for the rest of the day if I need to try to work, have appointments, if I run to the store, try to eat. Right now, it's like a big thing to just get out to a cafe where I'm around more people.
Yes.
So simple, but it's like,
Yeah. Becomes a whole thing.
yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, anyways, that was just wild. So, I mean, that's something that I think the public also needs to understand more about, which leads me to
Hmm.
one more thing real fast.
Okay.
When I came out with being diagnosed at stage 4, one, it was for sure I needed to open the weight up because holding it in was too much. Just close personal family, and but then it was like once it was also financial because it was like, okay, you can't work,
Hmm.
you got all everything's piling up, your bills don't stop, everything is still running. And so that was part of it, but then the other part was the information, because my cancer could have been prevented with a colonoscopy. They go
Mm.
in, they find a polyp, cancerous or precancer or benign, they just clip it out in a colonoscopy. But it was not, you weren't, they didn't start giving those until you're 50. So I was having my problems coming at 47 and I was diagnosed at 48. Now the age they recommend is 45. It should still be younger because I was seeing the multiple doctors, like I said, misdiagnosed, and maybe I wouldn't have been stage 4. Maybe I would have been stage
Right.
3. Or
Right.
miraculously, if it was caught early enough, they would have just clipped it out. So
Mm.
that's why I want my post to also be informative. Sorry, my
Hmm.
phone is going a little bananas. I want my post to be
Okay.
informative and share not just it's not about feeling bad or I'm not trying to do that. I want to inform. I want to be an advocate because people don't realize what we go through with different cancers. And again, like I started, we had the conversation. It's not just one thing. I mean, it's a combination. You've got to get your Western medicine. You have to trust those doctors. You have to be informed on yourself. Do not deny anything. Don't go in hiding and deny information. Don't oversaturate either, and stay away from the dark numbers because we're all
Hmm.
different cancers and we are different. Then the next component is I for sure think that my openness, my training for years, as you have done yourself, being an incredible
Yes.
stunt person and world champion yourself, we know what it takes to get there. The discipline, the falls, the get up and you do it again. You do it again,
Mhm.
do it again. And then you also have your risk side that we as professionals and learning, when is it time to step back? When do you need to make sure that's healed properly? Right. So we are real
Mhm.
good gauges with that internally if we've been smart athletes our whole life. And then
Right.
I think the other side that gets a little, leery for some people, but I think openness to creativity and vision and visualization and, even training as a kid or training my athletes or, this is a very simple little story, but I want to share it real quick. With McCartney Tour, I had three characters. It was all within a quick opening show for the tour, but they're quick changes and you don't warm up, as you know, and you're underdressed. So you're just kind of like boom, boom, boom. Well, the third character was on Stilt. So I'm on the side throwing them on really quick. I'm in a big Mocha Jambi costume, which I love, by the way. They were the African tribal dances that ward off the evil of the tribe. So it was like filled with
Mhm.
like dreamscape and this whole kind of healing energy. But, as soon as I go on stage, you go up the little tiny stairs and I'm like tall. So I have a thing. As soon as I walk out, middle stage, split kick, and then they reveal the contortionist who goes in a back bend, and I spin her with one arm, and she's got her feet to her head, right? So any moment
Mhm.
of those first two couple moves are very risky. They're just risky, and
Right.
I would not worry about me so much, but I always worried about my partners, and I was like, I could never go down with her. I have to figure out a way. They had two spotters in costume in case because her spine could easily snap if I drop or fall. So I would have this moment of like right before I'd go on stage for my cue of almost like a panic, like anxiety shooting up. And you already got all the adrenaline, but this was different because I'm very visual and I could visualize what the accident would be. So I would quickly imagine like the cable, my plug right here, just being like, take that out and rewire it. And it was such a
Mhm.
simple, easy thing, but it was quick enough for me to just like, and I would say, this is a story that doesn't need to happen, and just
Mhm.
I'd step on the stage. That
So
is when I
powerful.
injured my leg and got my labrum tear at the show, one show, which I remember exactly what I did incorrect, but left leg wasn't turned out enough anyway. But it was a quick antidote, and it helped. So visualization, mental strength, preparedness, training for sure, all of that I think has really helped me navigate this journey with cancer because intuitively you
Absolutely.
feel it, intuitively you know what's more going on than sometimes the doctors. I'm not saying don't trust your doctors though. You got to
Right.
trust, you want to trust all the resources you can and then hone in on your specific modalities of what you're experiencing. So it's a
Thank
lot.
you, Trey. Thank you. It's a lot, but you were able to, encapsulate this entire journey in a very short amount of time. Thank you so much for being so vulnerable with listeners and with our community and our industry. I still, again, cannot imagine what this has been like for you, but you are so amazing. You're so bold. You're so inspiring. You're so resourceful. And I know that this podcast is going to I think have a lot of people moving through their life differently. It can't not seeing you as one of us because we are all so connected in this industry and I could be you, you could be me, any of these things. We could all be in a very similar position in our lives, and you never know what different stages of your life are going to lead to within your artistic career. And this is very real, and you're able to communicate it with such, I think, poetic grace. And I know it's a very emotional experience to come on and speak about this and to be very naked, very emotionally naked. And thank you so much for being open to go into all the different intricacies of your treatments and of your experience. I just really honor the fact that you are willing, because this is not something that you have to share and be so open about and be so vulnerable. And I just want listeners to support you in any way that they can. And I will provide the GoFundMe link
Oh, thank
in
you.
the show notes of this episode. And listeners, please follow Trey on social media, follow his posts, and support him in any way that you can. I know our industry is very creative and very knowledgeable. So if there is something that you can provide for Trey, please do reach out to him and offer that support, because our industry and our community is phenomenal. And so in closing this podcast, again, Trey, thank you so much for taking the time. I know that, your time is incredibly precious as you go through all of your treatments and using your energy. And I know that you have to be very specific in how you coordinate your day with all of your appointments and all the ups and downs and how you feel. So again, I honor you so much, and I lift you up, and I'm very grateful to know you and to have known you throughout the course of these many years, and to now support you in this way as well through this very different journey for you.
Absolutely. And thank you so much. I love you dearly. And it's often from afar, we met,
Love you
quite a
too.
long time ago, the big production. And it's just been a pleasure to continue watching you grow and continue to push the industry, because it is
Oh,
a special industry. And a lot of us are connected, and we know so many of the same that, float in and out of these amazing jobs. So thank you for the support and reaching out, and love you. So thank you. And thank
I love
you,
you
all
too.
our friends in the community that have been there. I mean, I really appreciate it. So,
Wonderful. And I'll close out the podcast with this Circuspreneur podcast is also available on stagelink.com, stagelync.com, the groundbreaking new platform for live performing arts that provides unmatched access and connection to this vibrant world of shows and entertainment. If you're a professional in the performing arts, visit stagelink.com/pro. STAGELYNCPRO. StageLink Pro offers industry professionals higher visibility, networking opportunities, and tools to support and enhance their careers. Until next time, everyone, I'm your host, Shenea Stiletto. Thank you so much for tuning into the podcast. And thank you again to Trey Knight for honoring us with his presence today. Until next time.
thank you.